I'm Cullen Stanley, and I welcome you to a conversation with author Anne Newgarden about her book, Adventures of a Soul, Psychics, Mediums, the Mystical, and Me. Anne is a native New Yorker. She was born and raised in Staten Island, where her fascination with the metaphysical began, and has lived for many years in Greenwich Village. Anne has worked as a writer and editor in children's and educational media and in book publishing and magazine publishing. She's published previously, including, among other books, Becoming Jane, The Wit and Wisdom of Jane Austen. Adventures of a Soul is a deep dive into the metaphysical world. Anne doesn't limit her adventures to psychics and mediums. She considers ghosts, synchronicity, angels, channelers, among other modalities. She embarks on a serious quest to find out if the earthly and spirit worlds are in communication and what the possibilities are to move between the two dimensions. But understand, her book is by no means esoteric. Adventures of a Soul is a memoir that calls upon Anne's interest and background in science and covers the high and low points of her life, in particular, the quest to find a life partner, to reconcile herself to the loss of friends and relatives, and to find out if consciousness of the invisible world can help us lead a more productive and hopeful life on Earth. So I welcome Anne and look forward to speaking to you for the next half hour or so about Adventures of a Soul.
Thank you, Cullen. I'm happy to be here.
But tell us a little bit about how you came to write Adventures of Soul.
Okay, well, to be honest, I never really set out to write this book. I was always interested in the metaphysical, or what I call in this book a lot, the invisible world or the invisible realms, since I was a little girl. I was raised Catholic, but for some reason I was always very curious about past lives and very open to the idea of reincarnation. And when I was probably in elementary school, I bought a book from something that we had back then called the Arrow Book Club, where you ordered books through your classroom. And I bought a book about a psychic named Peter Herkos, who was a Dutchman who fell off a ladder and hit his head. And when he did, he opened up something that led him to become a very famous psychic. And I was really fascinated by that. And I ended up buying a deck of ESP cards to test my own abilities. And by junior high school, I wrote a paper on what we called then ESP, extrasensory perception. That term's not used so much anymore. But I just really felt on a gut level that there was something more out there than what we could experience with our five senses. And I was very curious to know what it was. I played with the Ouija board. I even had a pretend seance with my little sister when I was little. And so as I was growing up, though, I got away from that to some degree. I ended up going to Stuyvesant High School, which was very rigorous math and science high school in Manhattan. So I commuted from Staten Island, and the atmosphere there was really about as far from the woo-woo spiritual stuff as you can get. You know, we learned about the scientific method and how to test things, and just really took my mind away from my spiritual interests for a time. And then growing up, I was really very set on trying to become a writer and looking for love. And so I really wasn't thinking all that much about these esoteric subjects, but I did stumble into a few really fascinating experiences with what you might call the paranormal or the invisible world. One was meeting a friend of a friend who was a dancer, but was also a psychic. And I had my first psychic reading with her. And I sent a friend of mine to see her for a reading, who ended up being told that she herself was a medium. And that just really blew my mind. And she did a reading for my dad after he passed away that was very convincing to me. I really believed that she had that gift. And so that rekindled the interest, in me to some degree. But it wasn't really until midlife when I went through a bit of a crisis, the typical midlife crisis. I had finally found, what I thought was going to be possibly a life partner, but because of some difficult circumstances that had happened to him in his life, he ended up breaking that relationship off. And it really broke my heart. And at the same time, a very, very close friend of mine since college, whose name was David, passed away very, very suddenly. And it really kind of sent me back to that childhood curiosity and questioning about what happens after life. Does consciousness continue? Where was David? Was he somehow still able to be in touch with me? And also made me question what was really important in life. It really put into perspective how quickly this life can end, and made me really think about what I wanted to do with what life I had. And so I kind of, I launched into what I called really an exploratory project of, as you said, taking a deep dive into the metaphysical. I took classes, I read books, I did everything that I could to try to understand whether my experiences that I had had with the psychic and my friend who was the medium were real. And if there was any way that I could prove, maybe not definitively to the world, but to the science trained part of my brain, that what I had experienced was real. And, because I'm a writer and I had always kept journals of my experiences, or for most of my life I did, and I was very comfortable writing in that first person point of view, that the experiences ended up kind of morphing into a book. So that's the long answer to your short question.
Well, I knew it wouldn't be. I know you worked a long time on this book. You and I are friends, and so I was aware and feel that the audience would be interested in this journey. So it's almost as though reaching midlife brought you back to the start of your interest. And
Yeah, it
and
really did.
I think what's fascinating is that you did have that time in between where you were maybe less interested, but were also studying science, and so you approached the material very much in that way. Um, and I guess there, it seems to me nowadays there's increasing interest in spirituality subjects and books.
Definitely.
I certainly see a lot of books on those that touch on those subjects, and I think your book is quite unique in that it is covering so many different modalities, as I said, and I'm curious what you think sets the book apart from what exists.
Thanks, Cullen. That is a really good question. There are so many books out there now as compared to when I was growing up, where I was just dying to read about this, and there really wasn't that much that I knew of. I would say that one thing that makes my book really different is a lot of the books that are out there are actually written by practitioners. They're written by psychics or mediums or healers, and it's their journey of becoming that. Whereas mine is, just I have no vested interest, as they might, in proving that this stuff is real. A lot of people think this stuff is completely bogus and baloney, but I was a person that was really curious about it. And so I am just a regular person who has been looking for answers. And so I think that's a little different than many of the books that are out there nowadays. And one of the other things that I think makes my book a little different is I tried to really make the book a fun read, and I tried to infuse some humor into it, because I found that a lot of times this subject matter is taken so seriously. I don't mean serious in the sense of taking it as fact, but it's sort of shrouded in this sort of darkness, mystery, and, a scariness. And I really wanted to work
Esoteric. A bit
what did
esoteric.
yeah, I wanted to really sort of take that away and sort of demystify it. And I have found really that, in fact, in all my conversations with the spirit realm, or even in books that I've read where people are channeling beings from higher realms, they are incredibly funny. They have a really good sense of humor, and so I wanted to, include that and take it in a kind of the lighter way that I really feel is true to the subject.
Mhm. I was struck by the fact that you have a character in the book who is a friend who's referred to as Frankie, and he acts as kind of the resident skeptic, the one that many of us have encountered when we've tried to discuss subjects that touch on spirituality, or perhaps mediums or psychics, where they're very grounded in reality and therefore challenge us. And would tell me, did you actually think about people like that in the audience for this book?
Well, yeah, I included Frankie. Well, one, because he has been a very close friend and, was really a part of my day-to-day life. And he was forever making fun of me because he does not believe in any of this. And he knows he's in the book. He's a comedy writer too. His name is Frank Santopadre. He doesn't mind if I use his real name, so I'm going to share it here. He's very funny. And so I thought, well, I can quote him, and use some of his quotes to add a little humor to the book, but also people will relate to that. A lot of people will relate to what he's saying. And so sometimes I tease him, sometimes I kind of channeled him a little bit. I didn't actually quote him, but I seemed to channel some of his point of view of what he would say in certain situations. But really, yeah, it was partly with an eye to putting in that point of view into the book, because that is very much out there. And any of us that are into this stuff generally have many friends and family members that, think that we're crazy. So, that's part of the journey.
Well, and the journey is an intensely personal one, and yet I think many readers will probably relate to. I think it's a very human experience to sort of be thinking about, well, what does this mean, and what lies ahead, and what lay behind me mean, and how can I put that together? And I guess that was something that I also felt that very intensely. This is a personal journey, and you're very open and reveal quite a bit. And did you think about that when you were writing the book? How it would
I
be?
definitely did. Yes. I always knew that I wanted to be very open, very transparent. It was a little hard at times to think of this book going out into the world. And some friends even said, well, just use a pen name, use a pseudonym. But it was very important to me that I be really authentic and that I really stand behind everything that I said, because of the fact that a lot of people don't think that this stuff is real that I'm writing about. I felt
And by stuff, you mean what? You mean
the phenomena of intuition, of mediumship, of the existence of consciousness beyond death, and everything that goes along with that I write about in the book. So I felt that if I really was authentic about my own struggles and my own pains and losses, that it would lend a certain credibility to me, and that would translate onto the experiences that I was writing about, so that people would, find them more believable, perhaps. And also, I felt it was important to share, we all have these are universal, the feelings of grief and loss. And for me, a lot of struggles with heartache and unrequited love, and sometimes depression, anxiety, you name it, it's somewhere in the book. Parents with substance issues, parents with depression, everything. I had a lot going on. And it makes the reader, I think, first of all, details about a character, and I'm the main character in my memoir, make a book a better read. I know that as a writer and editor. So that was part of my impetus, but also it would really make people relate more, I think, to the character of me going on this, sharing this journey, because we all have these things and not everybody talks about it. And I think for people to be able to read about it, it can also be very healing to feel less alone, to feel like, yeah, other people are struggling with that. It's okay. It's not just me. It's just human, you know?
I was
So
struck in the book by the fact that you have to confront your fear of flying on commercial airlines, which I think many people deal with at various times, and that it's not enough to just know the physics works.
yes,
That you,
absolutely.
and that was one thing you had to overcome in order to actually even continue on the quest to.
That's true. That's
So,
true. And as my readers will find out, a psychic actually helped me a lot with that. I won't say too much about it. You can read it in the book, but I no longer have a fear of flying whatsoever. So, you know.
and that's also something that I think is significant about the book. It is structured around adventures, and these adventures, focus on a particular modality or topic, from mediumship and reincarnation, angels, spirit guides, and throughout, you're then incorporating a piece of your personal story. But one of the most interesting things is the way you kick off these adventures, which is recounting your experience with the first medium that you referred to earlier in this conversation, Patricia Masters. And I think it is interesting to talk about her and how she really forecast maybe this book.
Yes, she did. Well, actually, she was a psychic. She thought of herself more as a psychic, though I suppose she probably could do mediumship to some degree. A lot of people don't really know the difference between the two, so I'll just say that there's sort of the line that you often hear is all mediums are psychics, but not all psychics are mediums. So in order to be a medium, you have to have psychic abilities, but mediumship is one sort of subspecialty within the psychic ability, which is mediumship is the ability to contact people that have died. So Patricia, yeah, she was my first psychic, and it was through a friend that I met her. It was a very funny meeting. She was a dancer, and she was a professional dancer, and she was in a dance class with a friend of mine. And when she was doing exercises in the class, they were partnered together. And she told him afterwards she had picked up on some worries he had about his mom. She just picked him up out of his thoughts about a medical issue his mom was having. And it was absolutely correct. And she told him her advice on what he should do, and he did it. And it actually did prove to solve his mother's problem. So he told me about that. And he let me listen to a tape recording of a reading she had then offered to do for him for free, because she actually felt a little bad. She had kind of eavesdropped on his thoughts that way without asking. And, so I just was blown away by this, by the tape recording of his reading. And I thought, I have to go do that too. So that was my first ever psychic reading. And when one of the things that she said to me very early on, I, was so interested in the ability itself, not just in the answers to my questions, but the ability, even way back then in I guess it was probably my late 20s or early 30s. And I said, Patricia, could I ask you how you do what you do? And she said to me, well, Anne, I don't always talk about that with my clients, but I'll talk about it to you, because you're going to write about people who do what I do, and about what are called the invisible realms. And I mean, at that point, I had absolutely no intention of doing that. I was trying to write fiction. I was trying to write plays and screenplays. And I thought, is it going to be some fictional thing? I really, didn't have any idea about that. And she proceeded to do a really amazing reading, which I really write a lot about in the book. And then that's the first chapter in the book. And as I was going through this journey, I did a little what I called an informal experiment. It was one of the most fun things that I did in the book, where I met and got to know about 10 psychics and mediums. And I had readings with them about every 6 months, all of them, probably over the course of a couple of years. And my experiment was really to see, like, would they tell me the same things? Because they were sometimes sort of predicting, but they would also sort of do advising and telling you about your abilities and what you could be doing, with your life, what you're giving you career advice, and where you should be living, and all of that sort of thing. So the nutshell answer is, yeah, there was a lot of overlap, and it was very, very interesting. But as I was doing this, I was interviewing them a lot too about how they did what they did. And I kept thinking, I'm really sad that I can't interview Patricia, because, she was my first psychic and she was really a big influence on me. I went to see her probably 5 or 6 times, and many of my friends did also. I really spread the word about her because I thought she was so great. She unfortunately has passed away. So that was why I was thinking it's too bad that I can't include her. But then I started to think, well, I'm working with all these mediums and they can contact people that have passed away. And I'd had some really kind of astonishing experiences with certain mediums that were really able to kind of channel word for word from spirit. And so I asked one of the mediums, her name is Janet, who does channel spirit guides, and again, does it in this very word for word, very conversational way. I didn't tell her what I wanted to do. I just said, I'd like to do a reading, and I gave her Patricia's name, and truly, I felt that I was able to conduct an interview with Patricia from the other side, and it was wonderful. It was very moving. It was really kind of mind-blowing. And the most mind-blowing thing to me that happened, and this is a little bit of a spoiler that I'll give, but one thing she said to me when I was asking her questions about what it's like there, what they can do, what they can't do, she said to me, spirits can put the seed of an idea into humans' heads. And that just blew me away, really did. And so, that's kind of how they can serve as a guide, literally. I mean, they can't force you to do it, but they can put the idea in. And she said that what she knows now that she didn't know then, when she said that line to me about me writing the book, was that spirit was actually putting that idea in her head to say that to me, to put the idea into my head, to write that book or to write these books. So that I was
That's fascinating.
fascinated by that. Yeah.
Yeah, very fascinating. That's sort of just exactly as we were saying at the beginning, kind of piercing the two, whatever barrier we think there is between the earthly and spiritual world.
Yeah.
And of course, you said one catalyzing event that drew you back into the invisible world was love, or maybe even the loss of love. And I think that, of course, so many of your readers will be able to relate to that. That searching for a partner is a big part of the story, and something that you felt your dream team, as the group of 10 psychics, mediums, etc., composed, were able to help you navigate. And so, I mean, that was one more aspect of the book that I thought was very interesting, and that you were brave to tackle.
Thanks, Cullen. Yeah, I was brave, and I had to get the permission of someone who appeared in my life who's very much in the book. He was okay with me sharing our story, but I don't know if you wanted me to tell a little bit about that story.
I just wanted you to mention, that this was an aspect of the book, and that it's about the love that you looked for, the love that you found, and the love that you discovered continued, maybe it continued and was a connection, a point also between the earthly and spiritual worlds.
Definitely. So yeah, I had always had a hard time with love and with finding a partner, and didn't understand why. So of course I was always asking psychics when I had readings, and even while I was doing the exploratory project that came up, that was a lot of what I was asking, especially after I had that relationship breakup that kind of launched me into the exploration. And yeah, one of the psychics said to me that I was going to experience a man storm. It was very funny to me because I said, her name is Maggie Moyes. She's a wonderful psychic. And I said, Maggie, I've never in my life have I ever experienced anything like a man storm. And she's like, well, you will. And you're manifesting it because you need to learn to recognize red flags with men, which you haven't been very good at in the past. And that was true. And she also said to remind, and also because you need to be reminded that you are a wonderful, beautiful woman, because I think I was feeling really pretty, down in the dumps and, not very, I don't know, I felt rejected, even though what happened between the man that broke up with me and I really did not have that much to do with me. It had more to do with his own issues that he was struggling with. But you always feel, somewhat of a sting when you have your heart set on something and you really think, this maybe is going to be it, and I was also really closing in on the end of the time period during which I could have children. So it was that biological clock thing that I know a lot of people can relate to. And I really felt like if it wasn't going to be with him, I probably was not going to have kids. So it was tough. So anyway, Maggie did say that I was going to have this man storm, and I'll tell you that it was true. It did happen. And one particular guy of the man storm that she told me about was that I was going to meet a much younger man, and that he was not quite emotionally ripe yet. She put it nicely, but that he was going to really make me feel very good about myself. And that really did come to pass. It was a massively life-changing relationship. It was not an easy relationship in many ways. I won't get into the details, but it was a real roller coaster ride. And I won't tell you how it ended, but that is a major part of the through line in the book about looking for love. And it really was something that did change me and healed me in many ways. And it did involve past life stuff. It was very apparent to me, and even to him, who didn't really believe in this stuff, but he said it too, that we had many lives together. And
Yeah.
that's what happens with soulmate. The term soulmate really refers to people that you travel through various human lifetimes with over and over, and you tend to take different roles in one another's life. A soulmate is not always a love partner. It could be mother, brother, sister, father, business partner. But it's part of your soul's learning experience and an expansion experience. So anyway, yes, there is that through line in the book.
I would say overall, my impression from reading the book is that all of these experiences in many ways changed you, expanded your horizons, and in fact, I think I'd even say, based on what you say in the book, left you more optimistic. And
Definitely.
and why was that? Was it sort of understanding what you just said, that soulmates travel together? And
well, there was so much to it, and there's so many answers to that question. I mean, on a very basic level, I lost my fear of death completely because I came to really so fully believe that it is just a transition. Another one of my dream team members, Christina Wright, once said to me, Anne, dying, it's just like getting out of one car and getting into another. There's no ending. It's just transition. In fact, a lot of psychics don't even use the word death. They call it transitioning. And I had a fear of death like everybody else. It's that kind of human existential thing, but I really came to not fear death and just see it as the next adventure, honestly. It also just expanded as you said, expanded my horizons, or the way that I looked at reality, even just the simple thing of believing in reincarnation, which I tended to be open to it even as a kid, but I came to really, really believe in it. And part of that was, funny enough, a series of studies that I found out about going on at the University of Virginia, which is my alma mater, where they've been academically studying for 40 plus years children with past life memories very rigorously. And a lot of people don't even know about this. Jim Tucker, who's the head of that program, there's a whole division called the Division of Perceptual Studies that is studying this and other things like near-death experiences. And Jim Tucker has written a lot of books on it, and he's been getting more publicity lately. So it's starting to get a little bit more well-known, but that, among other things, really is so convincing. You know, he's a medical doctor. He didn't really believe in this stuff, but he said after doing this work, he just, you know, really has become persuaded. Yeah.
And I know that you also say at various points that although you certainly had a dream team of people and you investigated a lot of different modalities, that this is just the tip of the metaphysical iceberg.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess that's going to play some role in the future for you.
Yeah, the topics that I studied in that book and what I learned in that book really, I do feel like was the tip of the iceberg. And that's part of what changed me too, is I really got so intrigued and excited by everything that I was learning that it just added a lot of excitement, a lot of joy, you know, a lot of stimulation to my existence. You know, I don't know anything as interesting to me as studying these topics. I mean, because to me, it's like, it's who are we? Why are we here? Where are we going? You know, what is this all about? And to me, those are, you know, the most important and the biggest questions. And to me, what is more fascinating than that? So,
So
you know,
do you think you'll write another book?
oh, definitely. So I'm already working on two. And I believe, you know, as I was doing all these readings with the Dream Team, they kept telling me that it was a series of books. And I really had no intention at that time of writing more than one. And it took me a long time to write and to actually get that book out there. But yes, I now see it as a series, and I'm working on two more. One is to do with healing, alternative healing, a lot of it as related to energy healing. Some of the more traditional, more maybe well accepted things like Chinese medicine and homeopathy, which is maybe not as well known and accepted here in the United States, but very popular in Europe and very well accepted by many people, many doctors there. And then it goes also into some more, maybe more esoteric things like shamanistic practices, and even the idea that your thoughts can heal, your thoughts and intentions can heal. And there's actually a lot of science backing this stuff up, believe it or not. And so that's what probably the next book that's going to come out will be. But I'm also working on another one that's more in the research phase right now, that is about the idea that we are, and this is a fascinating and a huge idea, but it's been around for a long time, that we are collectively as a human species evolving into a higher level of consciousness. And this is an idea that a lot of indigenous cultures have in their traditions. I know that the Mayans did, and I believe the Aborigines, and I'm sure there are others, but that at a certain point, if humanity survived, we didn't destroy ourselves, blow up the planet or nuke ourselves, we were going to evolve to a higher level of consciousness, which really means connecting more to our higher abilities, like our intuition, like our sense of telepathy, our ability to heal. These are things that I've come to learn we all have, and some people are born with them more developed than others, but as humans, we actually all have these abilities and can work on developing them. And so the idea of shifting into a higher level of consciousness would mean that we are really coming into possession more of those abilities. And also in into the ability to be cognizant of our past lives, which is really fascinating, so that we would really be able to remember the past lives, remember the abilities that we've had, the things we've learned. You know, if you were a shaman in some other past life, that you will be able to connect to that and remember what you did. And so this gives me great optimism at a time when so many people are so depressed and so pessimistic about us, you know, as a planet. I truly believe it's very exciting. And I think that we have some amazing things in store for us.
Lie
And
ahead. Well, that's
yes,
very interesting. And I mean, it certainly also, is an encouragement to people to pick up the book,
I
which
hope so.
is now out. And I think we should let viewers know where they can purchase a copy of Adventures of the Soul. Um,
Yes. It is a paperback and an ebook, and you can buy it at pretty much any online outlet that I can think of, including Amazon and Kindle, barnesandnoble.com, IndieBound, which I love because it's like a collective of independent bookstores, and I love to support those. Kobo, really Apple Books, I'm forgetting some of them, but really any of those online book retailers. And you can also ask for it in your favorite local, brick and mortar bookstore, as they call them.
or,
And
or And so why don't you let our viewers know your website, and so that they can follow your future appearances, media appearances, and blog posts, and any other news that you might have to share.
yes, thanks, Cullen. It's AnneNewgarden.com, and that's Anne with an E, Newgarden, just the way it sounds, NEWGARDEN.com. And yeah, there is a mailing list there that I would love for anyone interested to sign up on, that will tell you about upcoming events, upcoming books, and you get a free gift when you sign up, which I hope will be very useful and enjoyable also. So there's also a way to contact me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you think of the book, and any experiences that you'd like to share. Almost everyone I've ever talked to about this book has ended up telling me some experience they had that they couldn't really explain, of seeing a ghost or having an out-of-body experience or all kinds of things like that. Really, almost everyone has had something. And I love to hear your stories. And so I hope you'll share them with me. And I hope that if you like the book, and if you do buy it on an online retailer, that you'll post a review. It really helps me, and I would really appreciate that.
And my review, I'll just say that I think there's so much that, is fascinating in the book, and kind of awakens readers' senses to consider what may lie beyond just the surface of what we're taking in everyday life. And I think, as Anne has said, through her experiences and what she recounts, it does shift your perspective and give you a lot of hope and uplift. And so I hope you'll check the book out. And I thank you, Anne Newgarden. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. And I wish you all the best with Adventures of a Soul and your forthcoming books thereafter.
Thanks so much, Cullen. Thank you for having me. And thank you all. I appreciate you.